That increases the chance I play against my teammate as well. Sandy Dog is in here. Okay, PPTQ is starting. I hope this time the Twitch servers hold, because I had a very sweet PPTQ this week that I 5-0'd in, but the recording was shredded when Twitch servers went down globally and I was disconnected for like 1.5 matches. So, first step, rarity sort. And these show up as a special rarity because they were in Masters 25. Even the Legion Conquistadors, the Rivals of Ixalan Legion Conquistadors show up as better than Mythic, and the Ixalan and Legion Conquistadors show up normally as a common. So that's pretty strange. But yeah, we have Excess of Immortality here, which is pretty terrible. Jade Light Ranger I love. Blood Sun also unplayable. Nezahal is okay. Dreamcrawler Siren is pretty nice, and Wayward. Swordtooth is also like barely playable, so not the greatest rares. Step 2. I filter out all the unplayables or cards that I would only put into my sideboard. And also if I see a color that looks immediately awful, then I'm willing to dismiss it. For example, my red has no cards that I would want to... I mean, there's cards that I would want to play, like Tilnali's Knight's okay, Present Freebooters are okay, but not a single card pulls me into red. So unless my pool is a complete train wreck, I would be unhappy to ever play red. Also, we have the Stone Quarry, so I can recheck the red to see if there's anything splashable in here. And I think the Shake the Foundation is like the only card that could potentially be sideboarded in using this Stone Quarry if we're like in a Sailor of Means blue deck, for example. I could see this making the cut, but I want to never be main color red if I can avoid it. And if we do end up in a terrible position later on, I can revisit it, but for now, let's throw it out. And Duress, no. Pitiless Plunderer, no. I do like main decking one Dark Inquiry from time to time, because the format is pretty bomb heavy. And Aggressive Urge usually doesn't make the cut in my main decks, at least in sealed, though it is like a reasonable filler card. Plummet. This green also looks pretty awful, though we do just have like some feddies, and yeah, maybe the green is not that awful, because like casting big slightly oversized creatures and supplementing that with some removal out of the other colors is actually a real game plan. The black is also very shallow. We have like Reaver, Ambush, Moment of Craving as reasonable removal spells, some Dusk Chargers. But yeah, there's no real card that is truly pulling me towards black. Green does look okay, but nothing that really excites me outside of this Jade Light Ranger. Okay, so let's see. The Mystify is going out. 2 Baffling End is very nice. I do like Snaphorn Sentry. Skyblade of the Legion is a good 2-drop. Famished Paladin is very nice with these 2 square. Okay, so far I'm most impressed by white. Cleansing Ray to the sideboard. This one Legion Conquistador is not making the cut. Forerunner of the Legion to potentially get this Glorifier. We have 2 Sanguine Glorifiers, and the Famished Paladin goes super well with Strider's Devotion. Okay, so this white looks pretty nice. We have no hard removal for bigger creatures, only Baffling Ends. No Pious Interdiction or something like that. Let's look at blue. Deepwood Waters does not look like it's making the cut if my green is already not focused on Merfolks. We only have this one Commander Speaker and like, I guess, Jungleborn Pioneer, but not really any payoff for being Merfolk, so I don't think the Merfolk tribal enchantment is really where I want to be. 2 Sailor of Means, 2 Water Knots. Nezahal, that looks like a very defensive, like Ascent type setup, but then I have these Dead Eye Recorders that lend themselves more to a tempo deck to go with like these Crashing Tides, so that's a little bit awkward, because there's a divide in where I want to be strategically. Yeah, blue-white definitely looks like an appealing first choice, but I am not certain where I want to take it in terms of strategical orientation, because like there's some aspects of this that want to be tempo and aggressive, like the Dead-Eye Recallers, the Crashing Tides. I have some evasive 2-drops, and then there's some aspects of it that want to be defensive, like, I mean, Sailor of Means also helps when you're flying over. So this is 26 cards. The more defensive I get, the more these 2 cards are appealing. I have kind of a low pirate count for this Dreamcaller Siren, but even as a 3/3 flyer, it's still alright. Also a low vampire count for this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess 6, and the Forerunner is not that awful, but it's slightly worse than my other 4-drops. Blue-white busted, yeah. I do like blue-white as well. Yeah, good luck to you as well, and hopefully we don't meet. I saw you were in the tournament as well, Terminus. Yeah, so something like this. Queen's Commission. I guess that is another Sanguine Glorifier enabler, but I'm not the biggest fan of it when I don't have a a Vampire Lord to go with it. And maybe I could see like playing one less Crashing Tide, because I already have a bunch of bouncing effects. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bounces, and then 6 if I run this one as well. But yeah, this looks very solid. It's kind of missing the hexproof creatures to put Squires of Devotion on. This deck would really love a Soul of the Rapids. But yeah, I'll save that for now, and then I'll take a look at the other color combinations that I can build. But they're both blue and white look like they're individually powerful enough to end up with in one of my color combinations. So I guess black, white, and blue, green are the other 2 combos I could see running, because they have some synergy to them. Black, white would take better advantage of the vampires, but I don't even have any vampires in black, so I think that's something that I can just pass on. I would just gain like 2 removal spells, but the problem is I already have removal spells for small creatures, and these are 2 more removal spells for small creatures. The water nuts actually benefit my white build a lot more. Okay, so let's look at green, white, and blue, green. This one is a lot worse when we are green, white, of course. Yeah, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, these cards are already worse than the blue, except for Jade Light Ranger. And we're going to be short playables here as well. So, not that interested in this build. I can look at blue, green, because blue is a lot deeper. Not necessarily better than the white, but yeah. Now we're short on 2 drops, kind of overloaded on 3 drops. I could run this, of course, but it doesn't really fit the theme all that well. Yeah, not that big of a fan of this. The payoff for being Merfolk is kind of low, and the only thing we gain out of rebuilding this is that we get some Dreadmoss and our Jade Light Ranger, which are cards I like quite a bit, but here we already have a lot of other powerful aspects for our deck. The Squire's Devotion can offer some free wins. Wait, where did the other baffling end? This was 23. So what else do we have here? Not much really. Yeah, like the Cleansing Ray is going to be boarded infrequently, and like these 2 can let us lean a little bit more controllingly, and these 2 are like close to making the cut. But I think other than that, I'm pretty sure that this is the right solution. Kind of an easy build, if that ends up being my deck. Fairly tempo oriented, with a little bit of a payoff for ascending, and the Sailor of Means as well as the Squire's Devotions help me ascend. The second Squire's Devotion is a little bit awkward when I have no hexproof creature to put it on. I don't want to be flooded on them, but if I'm racing with flyers, and also if I want to enable this Famished Paladin, I guess they just have to both make the cut. The only thing I can consider is whether I want 16 or 17 lands, so the Crashing Tides replacing themselves already make it a little bit more likely that I hit my land drops from there, and my curve is kinda low with the exception of this Nezahal. You could theoretically even build it like this, but I'm losing out on some power level there. Just go super aggressive 16 land. But in those cases I would want to have another 2-drop. Maybe this Queen's Commission would make the cut then, because it offers me more targets for Sanguine Glorifier to make sure that this is a 4-4 on turn 4 every time. Then maybe this is thrown out again. It's not completely unreasonable. This offers me some vampires as well, so I would end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sources of vampires, which I think is an acceptable amount for the Sanguine Glorifier. But I do lose out on power level of having this card in my deck that can potentially win some matchups on its own, though I am able to board it in whenever I feel like it's good. Especially in the blue mirrors, it's insane. For more legacy, yeah, but I don't have any Evolving Wells. I don't think Brainstorm Man makes the cut. I would rather fit in this, like one of these two, instead of playing Brainstorm Man. The Queen's Commission is kind of weak in our deck, except for enabling these two, because we don't really have any ways of utilizing the 1/1s. It does give me like a temporary boost with this, and does provide targets for these. But I'm not heavily ascending. Only 2 cards in my deck care about ascend, and I'm not pumping these tokens all too often, so I think they don't make the cut. And then I'm happy going back to this setup, and probably even just playing 17 land. Maybe this makes the cut. It is kind of an underwhelming card in general, but it does allow me to at the same time play a lower land count, but still sometimes be able to cast this reasonably quickly. And also helps with Ascend, of course. Just a little bit. No, not that much. Yeah, I would want more Conquistadors in this deck for sure. Then I could replace like the Stormfleet Spy and play like 3 Conquistadors or something. That would also make my Sanguine Glorifier Forerunner of the Legion package a little bit better if I had more Conquistadors to work with. Access of Immortality, Glorifier of Dusk is a sweet combo, but it's just way too French. So yeah, this Crashing Tide and the, like, I'm pretty sure I'm playing like 8-8 or something like this. Maybe 9-7, no, I probably want 8-8, and then the extra island is fighting for a spot, and the extra Crashing Tide is fighting for a spot, and I could throw out the Nezahal and then board it in whenever I feel it's applicable. Yeah, I think with how my deck is set up, the Nezahal is going to be stuck in my hand way too often. I think I like this actually. I might be crazy, but like this is super low curve, super aggressive, and then whenever that doesn't get there, I can board this in. It's a little bit awkward that I have so few 2-drops to go with such an aggressive setup. I would want to have another, like the 1/2 that gets a +1/+1, 1/2 flying that gets a +1/+1 counter when you have attacked, or like one of the broken 2-drop rares, like the 2/1 flyer that takes abilities from your opponent's creatures and makes them 0/1. Something like that would be insane for this curve. And the 3-drop slot could use like a Resplendent Griffin or something as another payoff to be blue-white. But yeah, I think I'll submit this and try like this. Even this Moment of Triumph is not entirely terrible when I'm being this aggressive, But I think I mostly want to avoid getting into combat with my opponent's creatures. Like this flies over, this flies over, this flies over, and so on. And then whenever my opponent puts blockers in front of my creatures, I like have 5 ways of bouncing them out of the way. Or I fly over first and then bounce them post-combat to make it more difficult for my opponent to raise. That looks pretty reasonable. Sure.